Hello and welcome to today's mathematics lesson. Our topic for today is plane geometry 1, and specifically I'm looking at the angle properties of a triangle. If you've been following my lessons, I've been looking at plane geometry 1. This is my third week. I started with angle properties of straight lines. Then last week I did in our last lesson I looked at the angle properties of parallel lines. Now today I want to take time to look at the angle properties of triangles. Angle properties of triangles. I'm Clement Menlah, your facilitator for today. So as I said, I'm going to look at angle properties of triangles. Angle properties of triangles. Now, the learning objective. Now, I expect that by the end of the lesson, you should be able to state the properties associated with, or what I mean, the angle properties of triangles. You should be able to state all the properties, and then also you should be able to apply them to solve questions. So that is the learning objective. Now, in terms of relevant previous knowledge, that's the background or the knowledge you need to be able to understand the topic I'm going to look at. You need to have started plane geometry 1. At least you must have an understanding of the angle properties of straight lines. You must have an understanding of the angle properties of parallel lines. In fact, you should be able to state the properties and be able to apply them to solve questions. Now, once you are in that mode, then you are ready to go. But even more importantly, you should also have some understanding of triangles and especially the types of triangles. So these are the basics that you need to be able to move on. So you must understand the other properties, you should have gone through them, and then also know the types of triangle. So with that, I'm ready to get into today's lesson. Now, when I talk about the types of triangle, I'm sure you are already familiar with them. I'm talking about the acute angle, the isosceles triangle, the equilateral triangle, the scalene triangle, the acute angle triangle, the obtuse angle triangle, and so on. Those types, we expect that you know them. Now, going straight into today's lesson. Now, I'm going to group the properties that I'm going to handle into two parts. I'm going to look at it in terms of what I call the general angle properties. And then I'll also look at it in terms of special angle properties. The general angle properties and special. So for a start, the obvious question is, what is a triangle? What is a triangle? And I'm sure from your basics from basic school and JHS up to this level, I expect that at least you should have some understanding. But in short, a triangle is any three-sided plane figure. A triangle is a three-sided plane figure. So that is a triangle. So as I said, I'm looking at the angle properties of a triangle. So any three-sided plane figure is a triangle. Now, I'm going to draw, and then I will look at it. Now, if I have something of this nature, now this is a triangle. if I call this angle A, call this one B, call this one C, call this one D, call this one E, and call this one F. Now, the angles A, B, and C, A, B, and C are what we call the interior angles. The interior angles. Then the angles D, E, and F. D, E, and the F are what we call the exterior angles. So basically the interior angles are the ones that are inside, and the exterior ones are the ones that are outside. But please be careful of how to identify an exterior angle. The interior angles, I'm sure they are obvious, but the exterior angle, you should have a side that is going beyond. You see that this side is actually coming from one of the sides of the triangle, and then this one is also another side. Then in that case, you can form an exterior angle. It's the same here. This one is an extension of this whole side, and then this side also, then you have it there. Again, this side is an extension, and there's also another side. You have that angle. So those are what we can safely refer to as the exterior angle. The exterior angle. Now, I'm going to get into the property, but as I said, I'm going to group the properties under what I call general properties and then special properties. So let me begin to look at the general angle properties of a triangle, what I call the general angle properties. Remember, I'm looking at triangle, but I'm looking at it in terms. Now, number one, in terms of general, what I mean by general is that those properties apply to any triangle at all. So in short, what I'm saying is that there are some properties that apply to every triangle, and there are some properties that apply to some specific triangle. That is why I'm looking at it in terms of general property, in terms of general and specific or special. So what is the first angle property, the first general angle property I want to look at? Now the first angle property says that the sum of interior angles of any triangle is equal to 180 degrees. The sum of interior angles of any triangle is equal to 180 degrees. Now this is one of the general properties of any triangle. That would mean that if you pick any triangle at all, whether equilateral, isosceles, scalene, acute angle triangle, obtuse triangle, whatever, once it is a triangle, this particular property applies to it. Now what am I saying? So that if you pick the the diagram I have, then it will mean that your A plus B plus C is equal to 180 degrees. So that's the first thing I want us to take note. So that you could have a question around it. So that maybe by an example, if I happen to have this angle to be 25 and this is 35, and this angle is say M, and I want to find M, then it will mean that because the sum of the interior angle of any triangle is 180, it means that 25 plus 35 plus M will give me 180. So 60 plus M will give me 180, and then my M will be 180 minus 60, and so my M is equal to 120 degrees. 120 degrees. So that is my first general. Now, the second property that I want to look at quickly The second, I'm sure, is very clear to us. And number 2, the second property is that the sum of exterior angles of any triangle is equal to 360 degrees. So what it means is that when you take the exterior angles and you sum them, you're supposed to get 360 degrees. So I would say that the sum of exterior angles of any triangle is equal to 360 degrees. Very important. So in that case, it will mean that from my triangle, it means D plus E plus F gives me 360 degrees. Very, very important. Very, very important. So once again, you could have an example where you are adding that. So that is the second one. Now let me quickly move on to the third one. Now the third one, in terms of property. Now remember, these are all properties of triangles. These are all properties of triangles. Now the third one, let me quickly look at it. The third one is very, very interesting. Third one is very, very interesting. And what does it say? The third one says an exterior angle of any triangle is equal to the sum of the two opposite interior angles. An exterior angle of any triangle is always equal to the sum of the two opposite interior angles. Let me write it for you. An exterior angle of any triangle is equal to the sum of the two interior opposite angles. Very, very important. An exterior angle of any triangle is equal to the sum of the two interior opposite angles. Now the two interior opposite angles is interesting. So let me go here and try and explain it better. Use my diagram. So for example, if I take the exterior angle D, now you'll notice that that exterior angle D is around this point. It's around this point where I have indicated. It's around this point. Now, every triangle has three vertices. But I've already explained three vertices. That is the point where two lines meet, or where we call the junctions. So there's this junction, this junction, this junction. Those are what we call the vertices. Now, the D is at this point, or at this vertex. Now, once this one is out, there are two other vertices left. That is this one and this one. Now, around these two other vertices, look for the two interior angles there. What are the two interior angles there? They will be your B and your C. Now, the rule says that this exterior angle is equal to the sum of these two interior angles, which are around these other two vertices. In the same way, if I pick this exterior angle, it means that I am around this vertex. What are the two other vertices left? This one and this one. What are the interior angles there? They are A and C. And so E should be equal to the sum of A and then C. And then finally, if I pick, I'm looking at F. F is around this vertex. Now, what are the two other vertices left? This one and this one. What are the two interior angles there? A and B. And so F should be equal to A plus B. and that explains what do you call it, that property. So we'll say that from the diagram, we say that our D is equal to B plus C, and then our E is equal to A plus C, and our F is equal to A plus B. So that is the third property. That is and that will end my what I call the general angle properties of a triangle. The general angle properties of a triangle. Now I'm going to look at the specific angle properties, or what I also sometimes call the special angle properties. The specific angle properties of a triangle. So in terms of the general angle properties, I've given you three of them. One is that the sum of the interior angles of any triangle is 180 degrees. And then two, I said the sum of the exterior angles of any triangle is 360 degrees. And then the last one, which is still on the board, an exterior angle of any triangle is equal to the sum of the two interior opposite angles. So those are what I call the general angle properties. Let me quickly look at the specific angle properties. The specific angle properties. So remember, in both cases I'm referring to triangles. I've looked at the general angle properties of a triangle. Now I'm looking at the specific angle properties of a triangle. Now in that case, I'm going to pick the various types of, especially the three basic types of triangles, and then I will look at them in some detail. So for example, first I'm looking at equilateral triangle. Now when you have an equilateral triangle, what is the specific angle property that you could have there? Now what is an equilateral triangle? An equilateral triangle is basically a triangle whose three sides are equal. So that, for example, I have this. This is my equilateral triangle. Let's say my A, my B, my C. Now, what shows that I'm referring to an equilateral triangle is the fact that I put these signs there. So anytime you saw something of that nature, it is telling you that this side, the length of this side is equal to this side, and it's also equal to that side. Very, very important. So that is an equilateral triangle. Now, for any equilateral triangle, what is the property? The property is that for any equilateral triangle, and then I'll write it for you. So for any equilateral triangle, for any equilateral triangle, the three interior angles are equal. The three interior angles are equal, and it's 60 degrees. And it's 60 degrees. Right? So that would mean that from our diagram, it means that A is equal to B is equal to C and is equal to 60. A is equal to 60, B is equal to 60, and C. For any equilateral triangle, you have to always remember that each interior angle, all the interior angles are equal. Now, let me quickly touch on isosceles triangle. Isosceles triangle. So number 2. Let me look at 2. Isosceles isosceles triangle. Okay, so now the question is, what is an isosceles triangle? What is an isosceles triangle? Now, an isosceles triangle is any triangle that has two of its sides equal. And so, something of this nature. my angle here is A, B, and C. And I put these indications here, indicating that this side is equal to this side. Those two sides are equal. Now, what can we say about an isosceles triangle? We are saying that for any isosceles triangle, very interesting, for any isosceles triangle, I will say that the two angles opposite the two equal sides are equal. Very important. For any isosceles triangle, we are saying that the two angles opposite the two equal sides are equal. Now, so if you look at the triangle I have here, I have said that this side and this side, as I have indicated, they are equal. Now, the question you ask yourself is, what are the two angles that are opposite to these two equal sides? So, for example, if you take this side, what is the angle opposite this side? It is B. If you take this side, what is the angle opposite that side? It is A. I'm sure we understand opposite. Opposite simply means facing each other. So what angle is facing this side of the triangle? It is B. What angle is facing this side? It is A. Now the property says that, or the rule says that those two angles must be equal. Very, very important. So we'll say that that is A is equal to B. Very, very important. Please take note of this property. It's a very important property when it comes to geometry and isosceles triangle. Most of the time, you are going to find a lot of questions around this particular property. And as I've said, at the right time, I'm going to spend a lesson or two to actually look at so many examples around these properties that we are taking time to look at. So that is basically the isosceles triangle. If I may maybe pick a typical example here, since it's quite important. Now, if I have this, and I'm saying that this side and this side are equal, and I'm saying that this angle is AY, right? And I'm saying that this side is a, let's see, I'm saying that this side is a 35, for example, degrees, right? And I want to find y. So the question is, find y. How do I find y? How do I find y? Now, the property tells me that the two angles opposite the two equal sides are equal. The two angles opposite the two equal sides are equal. So from this triangle, it means that this angle is opposite this side and this angle is opposite this side. So it means that this angle and this angle must be equal. So in that sense, if this angle is y, this angle will also be y. This angle will also be y. So I can safely say that this angle is also y. And then from there, from the first general property we learned, we said that the sum of any interior angle is 180. So it means from this triangle, I can simply say that y plus 35 is equal to 180 degrees. So it means that I have 2y. Please let me make some alterations to 2y is equal to 360. I'm not saying it cannot be done. I'm changing it for simplicity's sake. So that I have 2y is equal to 180 minus 360. 2y is equal to 150. And then I'll have to divide here by 2. So my y will be equal to 150 divided by 2, which means I have 75 degrees. So it means y is 75 degrees. And that is about that second property. Very, very important. Please take note of that. Now I'm going to take the very last one in terms of property before I finally round up. And as you know, as I said, I'm targeting those specifics. Now the third type of triangle you know by now is what we call the scalene. The scalene. The scalene. What are scalene triangles? Scalene triangles are basically triangles where all the sides are different. All the sides are different in terms of length. So in that case, it could be any. All the sides, none of the three sides is equal. They are all different. In that case, the property is very simple. We don't really have a specific property. You can only resort to the general property. You can only refer to the general property. You will not have any special property there. But we all know from the general that a plus b plus c will give us 180, and then the exterior may also come in. And then you could also have what we call the right-angled triangle. The right-angled triangle. Those types are also side, at least the right-angled triangle. Those are the type of angles I'm sure you know by now. They are the types of triangles where at least one of the angle is 90 degrees. You know, remember right angle, 90 degrees. And so you have this type. So that is what we call the right angle triangle. Later I'll come and look at the right angle triangle in a more specific manner in terms of this time bringing in the dimensions, the sides, and that will lead us to what we call the Pythagoras theorem. But for now, I'm only interested in the angle properties. Then we also have what we call the acute angle triangle and all of that. So basically, these are the properties I have looked at specifically. I want to, in terms of take home, I want you to take those 5 that I've already mentioned. The first 3 that falls under the general. The sum of the interior angles is 180, and then the exterior, the sum of the exterior angle is 360, and then the fact that an exterior angle is equal to the 2 opposite interior angles. And then I came to the specific, and then I talked about the equilateral, where I talked about all the angles are equal and they are all 60. Then even more importantly, the isosceles, where I said that the 2 angles opposite the 2 equal sides are equal, and I emphasize that aspect is very, very important. So in terms of summary, that is what we have. Now before I go, maybe let's quickly look at these examples, and then maybe I will leave you with 1 or 2 4. So find the letters of the following. So we have something of this nature. 1, so for this one, I can't time it. Okay, so for the sake of time, I think, yeah. So for this one, it will mean that if we were looking at it again, we can easily use the property. We are saying that the sum of the interior angle of any triangle is 180. So it means we shall have x plus 42 giving us 180 degrees. So we have 2x plus 42 is equal to 180. 2x equal to 180 degrees is equal to 42. 2x is equal to help me, 180 plus 42, that is 138. So x will be 138 divided by 2, so your x is what? This one goes here 6, 18, 9, so 69. So that is it. Now let me take a second one quickly. Second one. I have something of this nature. So as I said, these are basic examples to just reinforce what we are doing. Later, as I said, we'll come back and look at them with more, should I say, difficult ones. So we want to find y here. Which of the properties lend itself easily to this question? There are so many ways, at least I can see about 2 different ways you can approach this question. But I'm going to approach it in a way that will, as it will help us reinforce a particular property I've already taken you through. And that is, you see that this angle here is an exterior angle, and it is around this point. So there are 2 other, or what we call the vertices, 2 other vertices left, this one and this one. Now the 2 interior angles there, when you sum them, they are supposed to give you this exterior angle. So in short, we will say that y plus 50 degrees is equal to 120. So that your y is equal to 120 minus 50. You remember the last general property I gave you. So that y is equal to 120 minus that 70 degrees. Right, so that is about there. Now let me take a last one before I probably round up my lesson, and then I'll just give you one to go and try. I have this, and I have this. That's a 60, and I'm looking at P, and I'm looking at Q, and I'm looking at 70. As I said, sometimes you have to bring in other properties you have already done. So if you saw something like that, now the moment you solve this, it gives you an indication that those 2 lines are parallel, if you have followed my last lesson. So how do we find P and Q? How do I find P and Q? Now because these 2 lines are parallel, it means that this line serves as a transversal, and this line can also serve as a transversal. So straight away, if you followed my last lesson, you understand that this angle and this angle correspond, and we said corresponding angles are equal. So it will mean that Q is straight away equal to 70 degrees. And once you know Q, remember you have a triangle in here, and so from that end you can easily see that P plus Q plus 60 equals 180. But remember, you have already found Q, and so you have P plus Q, which is 70 plus 60 equal to 180 degrees. So you have P plus that's 130. 130 degrees is equal to 180, and your P is equal to 180 minus 130. So your P is equal to 50 degrees. So basically that. So with this, I will end today's lesson, and then I'll give you just one example for an assignment. And so today, as I give you the assignment, I'm saying that we have looked at additional 5 basic properties. Additional 5 basic properties. 3 of them under what I call the general angle properties, and then 2 of them basically under what I call the specific. So I'll give you one for an assignment. So just quickly, just go and try and answer this. Later we'll come back and look at them in specific time. So once again, thank you very much. And again, you can always contact me through my number 0244 591 345, or by the same number you can WhatsApp me, and also you can contact me through my email, or you can send me an email through Asiedu Menlah. I always emphasize it's Menlah, not Mensa, at gmail.com. Thank you very much for your attention.